Secondly, based upon the use to which similar structures were put in later times, specifically the ziggurats, celestial worship, the worship of demons in place of the true God, was undoubtedly a major hidden purpose in the tower's construction, for the symbolism of a tower reaching into the heavens clearly betokens an attempt to make contact with the gods. After political unification had been cemented, the symbolic centerpiece of the new collective would be used for pagan religious activity. This pagan devil worship would, as in later times in Babylonia, be a mandatory part of life in the new society, and, as this would be the only society on earth, all true spirituality would forever be fatally compromised. Now at this time, a century or more after the flood, the entire world spoke a single language and had identical customs. And it so happened that in their expansion eastward, they found a favorable valley in the land of Shinar, that is, Babylonia, and took up residence there. And they began to say, every man to his friend, "Come, let's make bricks and fire them." Now these bricks they used in place of dressed stone, and they used tar in place of mortar. Then they began to say, "Come, let's build a city for ourselves, and a tower whose top will reach to the heavens. That way we can establish our identity and not be scattered over the face of the entire earth." Genesis 11, 1-4. The specific description in Genesis 11, 4 of the popular movement to build the Tower of Babel is the best testament we have to the uncannily persuasive powers of Nimrod. For the budding population of Earth has taken his words and plans as their own. Let us build. Now, clearly, this focused idea did not spring into the minds of the human family en masse of its own accord. It must have originated with someone, and the sole individual of the period reported by the Bible to be actively involved in the promotion of urbanization before and after the tower incident is Nimrod, who plainly found a way to further this plan on a grassroots level and thus be in a position to cast himself in the role of a humble facilitator of the popular will rather than of a high-profile dictator, a key characteristic of tyrants in their rise to power ever since. Another interesting point about his strategy to be gleaned from the narrative is the fact that the campaign to found Babel and build the tower was advanced very much in the manner of similar politically correct, good, covered evil schemes of our own day. Part of the population bought the idea immediately, then began to coerce their more reluctant neighbors to take part, and they began to say, every man to his friend, demonstrating that peer pressure has always been an important element in political persuasion. Furthermore, the plan did not start with the tower, the mostly clearly anti-God element of Nimrod's design. First, collective action in general construction is secured. Let us make bricks. Second, in a classic bait-and-switch maneuver, the construction of a city is put forward as a worthy construction objective, with the tower the real focus of the operation, disguised as a subordinate afterthought. We can see how the promise of a large urban center would have appealed to the post-flood generation, who had been a strictly rural civilization before Nimrod came on the scene, but who had doubtless heard about the antediluvian cities and would only naturally be desirous of reduplicating such inventions. Genesis 4:17. Now cities and urbanization, like technology, are not evil in and of themselves. But as with many things in life, that which is allowable is not always beneficial to our spirituality. 1 Corinthians 6:12 and 10:23. Many things in life, by their very nature, bring with them increased potential for temptation and turning away from God, and because of the diversity of our sin natures, these things often differ from person to person. As the sequel shows, the building of Babel did in fact have terrible spiritual consequences for the reasons addressed. Third, for those who were not fooled about the importance of the tower in the plan to build Babel, and who had the character to resist the intense peer pressure to join in this whole-world effort, Nimrod provided an attractive incentive and rationale for the need to construct such an edifice. Without the tower, so the claim went, the heritage and history of the human family would be lost. Unless some extraordinary step were taken, their common identity as a distinct people would be obliterated by the passage of time and by the rapid growth and dispersal of a population that by and large had not even second-hand knowledge of the pre-flood civilization. Thus, Nimrod's appeal also played craftily upon the common human tendency to wish to preserve its roots, a characteristic no doubt all the more open to exploitation on account of the recent memory of the worldwide flood which had eradicated every tangible trace of the antediluvian civilization. Lost in the enthusiasm of the moment, by all but the unnamed, unsung faithful few, was the fact that this attitude, let alone this act of creating a monument to themselves, flew in the face of any true faith in God. He is our Father, and our names are known forever by him. Isaiah 56:5, Luke 10:20, and Revelation 2:17. We are written in his book, Psalm 139:16, Daniel 12:1, and Philippians 4:3. Everything on this earth is dust, destined for destruction. 1 Peter 4:7 and 2 Peter 3:12. And the idea of preserving ourselves through preserving our name is a fatal vanity. The Tower of Babel, therefore, in addition to providing a framework whereby all future generations could be influenced and coerced into ignoring God, was essentially a monument of anti-faith, for its express purpose was to do what only God can do, that is, preserve human life and identity forever, and its very building a blasphemous statement to the effect that God could not or would not do so. The Tower of Babel was thus a complete rejection of faith in the covenant made by God with Noah, wherein he pledged never to wipe out mankind again, replacing as it did the amazing rainbow of promise with a man-made edifice of dirt. Now the Lord came down to see the city and the tower which the sons of men were building. And the Lord said, Behold, they are one people, and they all speak the same language. And since they have actually begun to accomplish this thing, in the future they will not be restrained, batzah, from anything which they have contrived to do, zamam. Come, let us go down and confuse their language in that place, so that no one will be able to understand his neighbor's speech. In doing so, the Lord scattered them from there over the face of the entire earth, and they stopped cooperatively building the city. For this reason, the city is called Babel, since there the Lord changed the universal language of the earth to Babel, and from that place the Lord scattered humanity over the face of the whole earth. Genesis 11:5-9. By confusing the common human language of the time, God rendered worldwide cooperation and the godless objectives it inevitably pursues impossible. So it will remain until the advent of Antichrist, when the new technological Tower of Babel that is currently under construction, that is, the incipient one-world techno-society, will make such activities as worldwide persecution of believers a possibility again. For by his confusion of human language, God restrained accomplishment of this most offensive and evil kind, and thus God delivered those who resisted the idea of preserving life and identity apart from God. God always leaves a remnant of believers for himself, Romans 9:27 and 11:1-5, which, in this case, must have included Noah and Shem, who both outlived Peleg, in whose days these events took place. Satan's attack on the line of the Messiah, anti-Semitism. The third satanic strategy of anti-Semitism, or more precisely, a systematic policy of attempting to eradicate all Jews from planet Earth, has been in play since the day of Abraham's circumcision, and will continue until the devil is removed from the world. This strategy can be divided into 3 phases. 1. Before Christ. 2. The time of Christ. 3. After Christ. Before Christ, the Jewish people were a special target of the devil because of the fact that the Messiah was destined to come from Israel. If he could not eliminate, corrupt, or subject the human race to his complete control, destroying the line of the Promised One would suffice to bring the plan of God to an abrupt end. Complete annihilation of the Jewish state and the Jewish people was the only sure way to accomplish this objective, And so it was that Satan devoted considerable resources to attacking Israel, both internally and externally. Internally, Israel became the target of every corrupting influence the devil could bring to bear. One needs only read the prophets, especially Jeremiah, to get a sense of the idolatries into which she was led, while externally, Satan worked tirelessly to array the nations of the world against her for the purpose of her destruction. Consider, for example, the concentration of his agents in neighboring nations, Daniel 10:13 and 10:20.